Every day on this channel, I go through everything Elon said on X in the last 24 hours. And here's how many times Elon posted about each subject today. I'll go over everything he said about each subject before moving on to the next one. And starting with xAI, they came out with a new product recently called Grok 4 Fast, and it's now ranked number 1 on the language model arena's search leaderboard. Elon said making progress. And then he said progress because Grok 4 Fast Reasoning ranks number 1 with a new record on the extended New York Times Connections benchmark of 759 puzzles. Grok 4 Fast Reasoning in first and Grok 4 in second. And then ChatGPT takes the next 5 spots. Mark says that Grok 4 Fast has multimodal reasoning capabilities and is the first AI model to solve this task correctly. The task was to solve which glass gets full first based on this image. Grok concluded that glass 3 fills before any others. And apparently that's the first AI model to get that correct, and Elon reposted it. XFreeze says Grok 4 Fast matches GPT-5 performance at 23x lower cost, 95% cheaper. And Elon reposted this. And xAI just rolled out the Grok Teams, sharing and collaboration, centralized billing and invoicing, user access management, $30 per seat per month. And Elon said collaborative Grok. And we got improved Grok companion conversations. And Grok 4 Fast has a 2 million context window. That means it can process and remember 2 million tokens at a time when generating a response. And Grok 4 Fast is also 47 times cheaper than Grok 4. Grok 4 Fast exhibits state-of-the-art price to intelligence ratio, and Elon reposted this. This xAI employee said Grok 4 Fast is a very special model. I honestly didn't think this level of intelligence density was even possible not too long ago. Elon replied, intelligence density per unit of memory and compute is a fundamental metric. My rough guess is that large models are at least 1, but maybe 2 orders of magnitude away from the Platonic maximum, which is an idealized theoretical limit of intelligence. And Grok can now read aloud in a beautiful voice. You just click that button there and it will read the text for you. Tech Dev notes it's time to retire Grok 3. Grok 4 Fast is so much better at everything and has reasoning and non-reasoning too, plus multimodal. And Elon says yes. This xAI employee said if you had a 1 million token context window in a coding model, how would you actually use it? We are tuning Grok code and want to make sure all long context workflows are properly supported. And Elon reposted it. And you can see by the badge that Dustin Tran now works at xAI. He says, I departed Google DeepMind after 8 years. So many fond memories, from early foundational papers in Google Brain, to lead Gemini post-training evals to catch up and launch in 100 days, then leading the team to leapfrog to language model arena number 1. And stay there for over a year. And finally working on the incredible reasoning innovations for Gemini's IMO and ICPC gold medals. Gemini has been a wild journey from one paradigm to another. First, revamping our Lambda model, which was the first instruction-like chatbot, from an actual chatbot to long, contentful responses with reinforcement learning from human feedback. Then, reasoning and deep thinking by training over long thinking chains, novel environments, and reward heads. When we first started, public sentiment was bad. Everyone thought Google was doomed to fail due to its search legacy and organizational politics. Now Gemini is consistently number 1 in user preference and spearheading new scientific accomplishments, and everyone thinks Google winning is obvious. It also used to be the case that OpenAI would jump the AI news cycle by announcing before us from a backlog of ideas for every new Google release. Safe to say that backlog is empty. I have since joined xAI. The recipe is well known. Compute, data, and brilliant, hardworking people are all that's needed to obtain a frontier-level language model. xAI really believes in this. For compute, even at Google, I've never experienced this number of chips per capita, and even more is incoming with Colossus 2. For data, Grok 4 made the biggest bet in scaling reinforcement learning and post-training. xAI is making new bets to scale data, deep thinking, and the training recipe. And the team is quick. No company has gotten to where xAI is today in AI capabilities in as little as time. As Elon says, a company's first and second order derivatives are the most important. xAI's acceleration is the highest. I'm excited to announce that in my first few weeks, we launched Grok 4 Fast. Grok 4 is an amazing reasoning model, still the top on ArcAGI and new benchmarks like FinSearch Comp, but it's slow and was never really targeted for general purpose user needs. Grok 4 Fast is the best mini-class model on LM Arena. It is number 8. Gemini 2.5 Flash is number 18. And on core reasoning evals like Amy, it is on par with Grok 4 while 15 times cheaper. So Elon quoted that with a rocket ship. And then Tetsuo quoted it and said, xAI attracts the best talent in the world. And Elon reposted that. And someone else posted that Grok 4 Fast is #1 in the arena, and Elon said, Friday Night Lights. And in a rare company-wide meeting on Wednesday, Elon laid out his vision for xAI, his 2-year-old startup that is chasing its competitors in the race to build artificial intelligence. Using the lofty language that has typified Musk's AI dreams for more than a decade, he told employees that he wanted to build systems that were maximally truth-seeking while previewing plans to build a Microsoft competitor called MacroHard. Tech Dev Notes quoted Elon saying, "We are the only company where the mission is truth," and Elon reposted this. And Elon said the news about xAI raising capital is fake, but Elon replied to this saying, xAI will of course raise capital in the coming months, just not right now. And Elon said that by November, Grok will be running the X4U algorithm. It will be configurable just by telling the AI what you want to see and what you dislike. Like this, Grok, show me more AI news. And then your For You timeline will be more AI news. Elon said, yeah, will make a big difference for small or new accounts who post great content, as Grok will actually read every post to assess whether others would find it interesting. And Matthew said, hey, xAI, I've been reaching out for months trying to get support on my $3,000 a year account with no response. Elon said, what seems to be the issue? Hans Nelson responded saying, this is the downside of having Elon be a one-man customer service department for 1,000 companies. And Elon had a laugh at that one. And Jeff Bezos says, what a view from our new free-flying camera. This is with Blue Origin, deployed on yesterday's New Shepard mission. The bubble is the seam between two 180-degree lenses. So Elon responded to this saying, epic view. And Starbase gives a huge thanks to everyone who joined their beach cleanup at Boca Chica Beach and Highway today. In partnership with Cameron County, we showed our dedication to keeping the beach enjoyable for all. Starbase is proud to be an integral member of Cameron County. And Elon reposted this. And Moron Finder shows that this account called Anonymous is ID verified. And Elon has a laugh at that one. And Andrew Smith sat down with Charlie Kirk an hour before the event at the Utah University where he was assassinated, and he just released the podcast. It was a warm, inspiring, and apolitical dialogue on entrepreneurship, building businesses, and an outlook for tomorrow. Elon quoted it and said, I know you are resting in peace, Charlie. Still can't believe this happened. Your memory lives strong. An online streamer, Destiny, has a tour scheduled to follow Turning Point USA, which is Charlie Kirk's nonprofit, follow them around and harass them at their events. Here's Destiny calling for Trump supporters to be shot and killed, and says that anyone who disagrees with his politics can and should be censored and deplatformed.
Disgusting. Conservatives have been disgusting for years, which is why I don't give a fuck about anybody that winds up at any of these rallies and gets shot or whatever the fuck, okay? Because they had no problem making fun of Paul Pelosi. The entire world would be better off if these people were permanently removed from these platforms. Like, there is no downside and only upside to see people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Tim Pool never be allowed to publicly broadcast their opinions ever again. It's exclusively bad stuff that happens.
So Michaela Peterson quotes that with this monster emoji, and Elon reposted it. Peter Haig says all people had to do was be fully against murdering someone for their political opinions. That was the moral test. Shocking how many seem to have failed it. And Elon said, yes. A lot of people will say that a white conservative man was killed by another white conservative man at a conservative college in a conservative state, and liberals are to blame. This, the shooter was a Groyper thing, seems about to become the next Michael Brown style big lie. The shooter was a bisexual furry with a trans roommate and lover, who opposed Charlie Kirk's hate and wrote literal Antifa slogans on his damn bullets. And somebody replied with a deleted post that Elon responded to. I remember the reply saying something along the lines of, it doesn't matter whether the shooter was left or right. What matters is how the left reacted to Charlie Kirk getting killed. They celebrated. And Elon said, exactly. And he says exactly again to Dave Smith, who said, call me crazy, but I thought the major violation of free speech last week was when the free speech guy got shot in the neck for promoting free speech. Evidently, it was the vaccine salesman, Jimmy Kimmel, with terrible ratings getting fired. And Elon said, exactly. The two most radicalizing events of my lifetime happened in the same week with Irina Zarutska and Charlie Kirk. And Elon says, yeah. Conan O'Brien came out and said the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel and the promise to silence other late-night shows hosts for criticizing the administration should disturb everyone on the right, left, and center. It's wrong, and anyone with a conscience knows it's wrong. Tim Pool quoted that saying, Conan says nothing when a man is murdered in front of his wife and children. But it's the apocalypse when Kimmel gets fired because advertisers and affiliates complained. Elon replied, contemptible behavior by Conan. And according to Italy's Internazionale, Charlie Kirk was the seed of hate. These journalists weaponize the minds of the weak. Their moral responsibility is equal to or greater than that of violent people. We must fight and reject their rhetoric of hate now, and Elon agrees. And the New York Times wrote the US is losing the race to return to the moon, critics say, pointing at SpaceX. Christian says absurd take. Do you think the US would be closer to winning without SpaceX, New York Times? Elon says it's not worth lining a parrot cage with the New York Times, let alone reading it. And LGB International says this is a declaration of independence. Today, lesbian, gay, and bisexual people have a new global organization. Megyn Kelly says LGB officially breaking up with TQ and it's about time. And Elon said, good. And Abigail Spanberger is a Democratic candidate for governor in Virginia. And they were asked a question on genders and bathrooms.
I asked Spanberger where she stands on this issue face to face. As you know, there's a battle playing out between the Trump administration's U.S. Department of Education and 5 Northern Virginia school systems. The Trump administration is taking aim at their locker room and bathroom policies. They say those school systems are violating Title IX by having policies that allow students to use bathrooms and locker rooms based on their gender identity, not biological sex. So can you tell us directly, do you support biological males who say they're women using women's locker rooms and bathrooms and competing in women's sports?
Well, the circumstance as this legal case plays out is really one of, we've had court cases settled or judged here in Virginia in the 4th District, the former Gavin Grimm case related to bathroom usage. And in fact, the argument is, the assessment is, there needs to be much clearer guidance in terms of what is an executive order's binding assessment of Title IX versus what has been a decision of a court. But ultimately, the real impact here is, once again, it is the Trump administration taking dollars away from Virginia. Threatening education dollars to our public schools is an attack on Virginia's kids. It's an attack on our economy. It's an attack on Virginians. And as governor, the important thing, as a candidate for governor, the important priority for me is to ensure that we have the best public schools in the entire country. And the reality is, when we have a president who is coming after Virginia, our education system, whether it's K through 12 or whether it is our public universities, that is harmful to Virginia, our ability to educate our kids, and ultimately our economy.
Walter says no, that isn't an answer. And we have no idea what that had to do with the question, but that's what she said. So there you have it, everyone. Does Spanberger support men in women's sports? We still have no idea. But Trump is definitely bad, according to Spanberger. What an absolute train wreck of a response. And Elon said Spanberger obviously does shamefully support boys and girls sports and is trying to weasel out of the question by blaming the president. And Chase Strangio is a ACLU lawyer, and he had to admit that there is no evidence that blocking a child's puberty reduces suicide in front of the Supreme Court. The false claim, the lie, that it does is the foundation of the case for pediatric gender medicine, used to emotionally blackmail parents to give consent to medicalizing their children, and used in front of hundreds of legal and administrative and medical tribunals to justify it over the past decade. It never had any evidentiary basis. It was always a lie. And Elon quoted this saying, it was always a lie used to mutilate children below the age of consent. And Sam Harris said, I would rather have a president in a coma, where the duties of the presidency are executed by a committee of just normal people. And Elon said, Psycho Sam. And Ilhan Omar is a congresswoman representing Minnesota. She says America is turning into one of the worst countries on earth. Mike Lee says, in that case, perhaps she'd rather return to Somalia. And Elon said, exactly. Liberals, if we could just jail Trump, get rid of MAGA, end the Electoral College, stack the Supreme Court, ban voter ID, and censor free speech, we could save democracy. And Elon has a laugh at that one. And an audit of Maryland's Social Services Administration revealed that at least 7 registered sex offenders were given guardianship over 10 children. Rafael Lopez is responsible for overseeing this program. Why are children being put into the hands of predators? Elon said, this is terrible. Conservatives hold black people to the same standards of conduct and achievement as everybody else. It's why they oppose DEI, quotas, and affirmative action, and support a colorblind justice system. For having these expectations, they get labeled racist. That's crazy. And Elon says, yeah, it makes no sense. Jasmine Crockett said most black people are not Republicans simply because we just is like, y'all racist. I can't hang out with the KKK in them. James Woods quoted that saying if she paid attention in high school, she would know the KKK was founded by Democrats. Elon said, yup. And Andy says on May 28th, 2021, I ran for my life through the streets of downtown Portland, Oregon. Antifa had discovered me working undercover after one of their members, John Hacker, exposed me to the mob. I screamed for help as I fled, but drivers and pedestrians looked away. The businesses were all shuttered, remnants of the ongoing destruction from the 2020 BLM Antifa riots. There was nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. They caught me. Antifa tackled me to the ground, tearing my knee tendon in the process as I slid across the pavement. They punched me over and over and tried to choke me out. I barely managed to stumble into the Nines Hotel, begging the staff to call 911. Instead, they tried to force me back outside and told me to wear a COVID mask. I dropped to the floor, refusing to move, pleading for them to call the police. They refused. Outside, Antifa gathered. One of their ringleaders, Elizabeth Richter, the blonde woman, began rallying the crowd. She called on others on a live stream to come finish me off. She went inside the hotel and threatened me. Antifa also tried breaking their way into the hotel. I escaped only by jumping into an elevator with a hotel guest. After that, I was taken by ambulance to the hospital with a police guard. I was soaked in my blood. On social media, Antifa immediately began trying to track which hospital I was in, hoping to finish the job. As soon as I was discharged, I had to flee Portland. I moved between safe houses in different states. Antifa's hunt for me was far from over. Portland police closed the case a few weeks afterward, saying they couldn't identify anyone. Nobody was ever arrested, just like in 2019 when I was beaten to the point that my brain bled. And he posted the full video of the street footage that aligns with his story, and Elon reposted it. And Mario said over 100 rapes a day in France. Nearly 60% of the victims are minors. Elon said, this is crazy. And Pakistan has repatriated 1.3 million Afghans in just 2 years. In other words, Pakistan has carried out the remigration of over 1 million Afghans, despite the UN Refugee Agency demanding a halt to the deportations. Pakistani authorities maintain that the measures are both legal and necessary, and according to Islamabad, the decision applies to all illegal immigrants regardless of origin. They're not given pocket money on the way out either because why would they be? I don't see anyone screaming racism or Nazis here. Elon replied saying, wow. And Ridian says today, 1,061 illegal migrants violated our sovereignty by crossing the English Channel via small boat. This week, the government returned only 3 individuals with no right to remain in our country. That is wholly inadequate. All must be returned. Zatsi said, I live in a village with a church. There's a pub, a village hall, and a community that has street parties, village barbecues, etc. The equivalent of 5x our village's population arrived here today alone. Elon quoted that saying, unless action is taken, this will happen everywhere. This headline says, Ed Miliband says Labour will honour the pledge of £11.6 billion in overseas climate aid. Basil the Great, who lives in Britain, said literally no one voted for this. It wasn't in your manifesto. It wasn't pledged before the election. It wasn't agreed as Labour Party policy. No one voted for a single penny of our money to be spent on overseas climate aid. I cannot wait until the Labour Party are destroyed. Elon said Labour's real constituency is not the working people of Britain, but rather the globalist elite. And Zia of Reform UK says 1 in 6 people on universal credit is a foreign national. Leo says you can't have a welfare state and open borders. Britain's deficit is £150 billion. Foreign nationals should have no recourse to public funds. And Elon says exactly. Having a welfare state creates a massive financial forcing function for most of Earth to move to Britain, which is a tiny country. This will cause financial collapse. And we've seen this story before. A Rochester man gets 180 days in jail for raping 2 girls under the age of 9. But then you have Nathan Poole, a young dad from Stoke, and he's just been jailed for 30 months after shouting, "Who the is Allah?" during a Southport-related disorder last year. The judge said Poole, 32, displayed hostility towards Islam, which is not even a crime. Elon said, rage. And Mads says, I don't know if you guys are history buffs or not, but this girl is crying in her thumbnail, and her title is, I got rejected from German Art University. I'm not okay. And the reason that Mads is asking if you guys are history buffs or not is because Hitler also got rejected from German Art University. Twice. So Elon replied to this saying, what's the worst that could happen? And the Financial Times, August 25th of 2025 wrote, "The ultimate status symbol, a big family. Kids are awesome. If you like children, think about making more babies." Elon responds 100 with a heart. Brian Johnson says fertility is down 50% in the past 50 years. What's the solution? Vittorio says a lot of people won't like this answer, but it's religion. And Elon said, you might be right. So that's everything that Elon said today. Everyone seems very impressed with Grok 4 Fast. The fact that you will be able to tell the X algorithm what you want to see on your For You page via Grok is pretty cool. It was also interesting, he said xAI would be raising capital in the next few months because that coincides with when Tesla investors will be voting on whether Tesla should invest into xAI. That will be taking place in November. So that's all for today. And as always, if you guys want early access to these videos or you just want to support the channel, you can do so by joining the channel as a member. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.